It was 1988, and I was standing at attention in the Nashville Police Academy, getting reamed out for a wrinkled uniform. My punishment? I was sent to the archives to document super cold cases, most more than 100 years old. Box after box of dusty files, some dating back over a century. At the time, it felt like petty busy work, a way to make me regret my lapse in uniform maintenance. I had no idea I was about to discover a case that would haunt me for the next 40 years, and beyond if the truth be known. This case is the inspiration for the CAINE family, while another is the inspiration for the murder that Kathy must solve. This one built the foundations of the home she now lives in. The brothers. Somewhere in those stacks of yellowed paper and faded ink, I found a case file from the 1840s. The details were sparse by modern standards, no photos, no forensic evidence, just handwritten witness statements and court documents. But what was there stopped me cold. Two brothers. One was the heir to a plantation, born to the owner's wife. The other was his half-brother, born to an enslaved woman. By all accounts, they were inseparable. Best friends. Partners in crime, literally. I know, unusual for the time period, but these two took conspiracy and human trafficking to a new level. Probably worthy of their own novel given that they made Tony Soprano look like a lovable puppy and got away with this for years before being caught. What one couldn't do in society, the other could. Black, white, rich, poor, no one was safe from these two. One or the other fit into every single aspect of society that could be squeezed for any of value, include lives. That is probably how they got away with it for so long. No, one fathomed the two would be brothers by blood, let alone act like it. This allowed their veil to conceal them for a very long time. The con, their scheme was breathtaking in its cruelty and sophistication. They would steal enslaved people from neighboring plantations, claiming to be helping them escape via the Underground Railroad. But these people never made it to freedom. Instead, the brothers sold them to pirates who shipped them to the islands. To get them to the ships, they would seal their victims in barrels for their protection, of course. It was easy to con someone so desperate for relief from their situation. Without resistance, they would be wheeled on the pirate ship along the Cumberland, where they sailed down river to the deep south and beyond reach of anyone could or would be able to ever help them again. Then came the truly diabolical part. They would rent enslaved people back to the very plantation owners they'd just stolen from, helping keep those plantations running. And if that wasn't enough, they'd buy more people at auction and sell them to those same owners, people they planned to steal again the following year. It was a perfect closed loop of human trafficking and exploitation, built on the fiction of liberation. Justice, eventually. They were finally caught and hanged. I wish I could give you more details, specific names, exact dates, the county where this happened. But here's the thing about finding a case file during punishment detail in 1988. I wasn't exactly taking careful notes. I was supposed to be documenting cases, not getting absorbed in the most horrifying story I'd ever read. I remember the name Bell appearing in the file. Whether that was the investigating officer or one of the brothers, I honestly can't recall anymore. After all, I wasn't there to research cases. I was there to document and get out so the two others I was there with could get to the law study group. But anyone from Nashville most likely knows that name. It's still there, woven into the city's history. The file itself, it's locked away in archives I can no longer access. That case from the 1840s is somewhere in Nashville's records, probably still in that same box, waiting for someone else to stumble across it. Why I had to tell this story? For 30 years, I couldn't shake this case. I thought about those brothers, their audacity, their cruelty, the way they weaponized both privilege and oppression. I thought about their victims, people who must have believed they were being rescued, only to be sold into even worse circumstances. The horror of imagining that you are running to freedom only to wake up on a pirate ship, heading to the next auction block, would be soul-crushing. I can't even begin to fathom what the victims of this crime felt now, that they were trapped even deeper into their slavery. In my career in law enforcement, I saw too many cases where justice was delayed or denied, where victims never got resolution, where the system failed the people it was supposed to protect. So I did what writers do. I fictionalized it. I gave those victims a different kind of justice, the supernatural kind. I created Kathy Marconi, a homicide detective who leaves New York after a scandal and buys a dilapidated plantation in Louisiana. She discovers the house is haunted by the people who suffered there, still seeking revenge against the plantation owner for the atrocities committed against them. The CAINE Plantation became my way of delivering the justice that those real victims from the 1840s never received in life. The book. The novel follows Kathy as she uncovers the quill codes of the Underground Railroad and realizes that some of the plantation's original inhabitants never left, and they have very good reasons to want revenge, and it's not who everyone thought it was. A local murder mimics the one from 170 years ago, leading Kathy to solve not only the murder, but dig deeper into the history of the CAINE Plantation. Little does she know, she may actually be the real target of the killer. It's a standalone thriller that combines historical mystery, supernatural elements, and the harder knowledge I gained from 32 years in law enforcement. It's about cold cases, buried secrets, and the idea that some debts can never truly be forgotten. This book is inspired by 5 collective cases, and one internal affairs case that led to the end of another officer's career. The story behind the story is real. The brothers existed. Their victims were real people. And somewhere in Nashville's archives, there's still a case file from the 1840s that documents one of the most calculated, cruel schemes I've ever encountered. I've spent my career, both in law enforcement and as a writer, trying to give voice to victims and deliver justice in whatever form I can. Sometimes that's through investigating real cases. Sometimes it's through fiction that lets victims have the resolution they deserved. All of my books, except the fairy tale reimagings, are pulled from victims who didn't get justice. So to work through this, I have given them as much justice as they can have in the world of fiction. Of course, names and places have been changed to protect the innocent and not subject their families to any more trauma than they have already endured. This is also why cases are blended into one story, so the families of victims can choose to remain anonymous, as the stories can't be traced back to them. A note on the quill codes. Historians debate whether quill codes on the Underground Railroad actually existed. Some argue the pattern cited didn't exist during that period. Others point to the lack of written documentation, understandable, given the need for secrecy. Spies don't carry journals with them for a reason. For the CAINE Plantation, I chose to embrace the folklore. Not because I'm claiming it's historical fact, but because these codes, real or imagined, represent something powerful. The idea that enslaved people found ways to communicate, resist, and survive under impossible circumstances. My fictional detective Kathy Marconi must crack these codes to survive. Whether they existed in 1840s Louisiana or not, they serve a larger truth of the story, that people will create systems of resistance and hope, even when those systems leave no trace that they ever truly existed. The brothers I discovered in that Nashville archive definitely existed. The quilt codes they might or might not have exploited. That's where history meets legend, and where fiction can explore the deeper truth. The CAINE Plantation is that kind of justice. The quiet recognition that something horrifying happened to innocent people. About the author. Corinne Green is an indie author with 10 published books and 32 years of law enforcement experience. She writes across multiple genres including mystery, horror, fantasy, and paranormal romance, often drawing on real cases from her career. The CAINE Plantation is available on Amazon. Want to read more? The link for the book is in the description. Questions about the case or the book? Leave a comment below. I love discussing the intersection of true crime and fiction writing.